What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. I am your host for today's video, Robert Garcia, Young RG, as Coach likes to call me. And in today's episode, we are going to be going over the Chargers training camp storylines, taking a look at a couple of positional battles between, some rookies or some new talent that we've brought in, and looking at new talent, new faces on the team overall. So without further ado, let's get right into it. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of interesting storylines. I do want to preface this video, however, I am just recording this now. It is August 7th at 11:10-ish a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Rashawn Slater was just carted off the field. And by all indications, it looks pretty bad. So this is... I'm not going to lie. It feels just like an absolute gut punch. The Chargers, I feel like, do have the pieces to shuffle a little bit. I think obviously you'd throw Joe Alt at left tackle. You're definitely putting Trey Pipkins at right tackle. That's his most comfortable position. Bozeman's obviously your center. And then I like Sawyer at the left guard position. And then obviously Becton at right guard. But man, we're obviously praying and prayers up. We're just hoping that he comes back soon and it's not as bad as it seems. Tyler Guyton had with the Cowboys had a similar kind of scare, and it ended up not nearly as bad as it was perceived at the time. So that's all we can hope for. And just want to start this off by sending out prayers to Slater. Yeah, that one definitely sucked to get that notification. Kind of going on to a little bit more of a positive note, going into the new faces, already obviously mentioned Mekhi Becton, brought in from the Eagles this past season. Need him now more than ever. He definitely is going to have to step up. This whole O-line is going to have to step up with the absence of Slater there for God knows how long. Trey Harris, of course, the second round wide receiver, who has been playing or has been flashing a lot in camp. Didn't really get the receptions or the targets in the preseason game, but if you go back and watch that film, he was getting open. It was just Trey Lance was finding other receivers, and for what it's worth, he was completing to some of these other receivers. He did go 12 of 20, 60% completion percentage isn't horrible. But yeah, I think he's going to be a Justin Herbert favorite. We've already kind of see him, like we mentioned, or like I've mentioned in previous videos. Herbert is kind of throwing these balls to him like he has that confidence that he's going to get them. So you love to see that early on. And Arade Gadsden, who is a late round pick, obviously, I think he was one of our second fifth round picks. I think all reports are indicating he is progressing very well as a blocker. And so that was obviously the biggest thing. It's probably one of the biggest reasons why he fell in the draft, because the receiving talent was there. We knew that. He was a former wide receiver. So that wasn't an issue. It was just a matter of, can he hold up his end of the bargain on blocking and in the run game? And if he's able to do that, man, that would be just the best thing ever. So I love the tight end room now with him added to it. So yeah, we'll see what happens with him, but I'm very excited for these three new players on this team. And now to get into a lot more positive news. Oh man, starting O-line to say, yeah, we'll get to that. Slayer is back, Slayer is back, and to try to ease this pain of the Slater injury. It is so awesome to have Keenan Allen back. I knew burning the jersey wouldn't have been a good move, so glad I held on to it. And yeah, I think he just expands this wide receiver room so much. The just well of knowledge and wisdom he has over the years, with the different QBs, obviously with Rivers, now Herbert, kind of saw this franchise, in its ups and its downs. And he is just, one of the best route runners there ever was in this generation. He was right up there with, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, just a couple of guys that just not fast by any means, but quick on their feet and able to create separation. So very happy to have him back. I think a solid season for him. You're probably looking at, well, I'll put it like this: high, like most you're going to get out of him, and that's assuming no injuries to any of the wide receivers. 700 yards, 6 touchdowns, something like that. I think if as a Chargers fan you're expecting Keenan Allen to walk through that door, or prime Keenan Allen to walk through that door, you're setting yourself up for failure and disappointment. But those of us who know just what he means to the locker room, there's just some guys that they may not contribute as much on the field as others, but just their locker room presence and what they mean to certain organizations, it's just something that you can't provide, and you can't. It's hard to find, and once you have it, you really don't want to let it go. So obviously, the connection and familiarity with Herbert. I mean, there's just so many things about this that made sense. Mike Williams retiring, like there's just it all made sense, and once Williams did retire, there was already all the buzz about, oh, well, Keenan Allen's still out there. And then obviously he came in for the visit / workout. And I think we all pretty much knew by that point he was going to re-sign. It was just a matter of when and for how much. And he does get the 1 year, $8.5 million, I think is what it's maxed out to, or what it could reach. I personally think he's going to re-sign another 1 year deal after the season's over, depending on how close he gets to Gates's receiving record. I firmly believe, and I say that loosely. That's an oxymoron. I somewhat believe. Let me say it like that. I somewhat believe that he will pass Gates's receptions record this year. I think he only needs 52 more to break for the Chargers all-time franchise, I should say. I think he should break that this year. The yards, I think he's still like 1,300 away. I definitely don't think something would have to go very, very wrong for these wide receivers, or in this wide receiver room, for Keenan Allen to put up 1,300 yards, or he's just, undefeated. Well, nobody's undefeated against Father Time, but he's currently beating Father Time. So I don't know. I don't expect that, but I do think he can provide somewhat. He can provide something to this offense. That much is certain. And now getting to the starting O-line, or I thought the starting O-line was set before this year, but or before this video, I should say, but it seems not. So obviously, mentioned at the start, Slater down with the injury. I think now you're starting O-line, and again, I just have to assume the worst here because we're Charger fans. It's what we do. I think you put Alt at left tackle. I think Sawyer comes into left guard. Bozeman's your center. I would really much prefer James, but whatever. Bozeman's your center. Becton is your right guard, and then of course Pipkins is your right tackle. Pipkins at right tackle wasn't horrible. That is his quote unquote normal usual position. Man, I really just don't want to see another season of Herbert having to run for his life. The interior O-line was so awful last year. The run game, part of that was obviously JK got hurt, but again, the interior O-line was so awful last year. And man, I mean, it's just that's an all-pro, Pro Bowl level talent you're having to replace at left tackle. And Joe Alt is a great replacement, but you're losing out on Joe Alt on your right side, and just having to shuffle this line around more and more. This early on, you never like to see that. You never love to see it this early on in training camp. That's all I have to say. We haven't even officially played our first preseason game yet. I know the Hall of Fame game, technically, however you want to say, counts as it, but we haven't even officially stepped on the field yet for our first preseason game, and we're already potentially down one of the cornerstone pieces of this team. And man, it's rough. It's absolutely rough, to say the least. Getting into some positional battles now. Obviously, the first one I want to talk about, like I mentioned, KLS at the beginning of this video. The wide receiver room has been outstanding to watch as a Chargers fan this training camp. There's like so much new talent coming in with Trey Harris, KLS. Obviously, Darius Davis is already there. You now bring in Keenan Allen back. QJ is still there. Obviously, Ladd. I mean, like, this is a potentially 4 or 5 deep wide receiver room, and that's not even counting, Quentin Johnston, because I would very much rather have Darius Davis. I think he can provide a lot more. I know they have different abilities and different thing, there is some things that QJ can do obviously better that Darius can't. But I just think as a whole, with what the other wide receivers, what we have, I think Darius complements that group more than QJ does. But at the end of the day, QJ is the wide receiver 2 on this team for right now. And he will stay there barring an injury, barring, his play just absolutely warranting him getting benched. But the thing you love to see is there's obviously a lot of guys competing for starting for reps, and you love having that issue. You love having the depth because when injuries inevitably do happen, you are prepared for that because you have guys that can contribute and can mimic what your starting players can do, and have guys that complement each other well. So I'm very happy with this wide receiver group and what they have shown so far. Obviously, KLS in the preseason game against the Lions balled out. He had a great route on that touchdown catch, had another deep catch, another great route to the outside corner, early on in the game. And Trey Lance was giving him some pretty good balls too. So, got to give credit to him as well. But yeah, I'm definitely excited for what this team, is going to, for what this room is going to provide. And it is a significant upgrade from the wide receiver room we had last year and from years prior. I don't care what anybody says. Oh, excuse me. I mean, I don't want to stress this enough that Herbert was throwing to Michael Bandy against the Niners when they went on their Super Bowl run that year. Michael Bandy. Okay, that's all. That enough said. Does anybody even know who Michael Bandy is? Chargers fans do, obviously, but does anybody else know who he is? No. Point exactly. Now, moving on to another positional battle here, we have the defensive backs, and this is just simply another case of there's so many guys in the room that are contributing. You obviously saw in, from last year, Tarheeb Still, Cam Hart, the rookies. You bring in Dante Jackson from the Steelers. You sign Benjamin St. Just from the Commanders, and obviously Coach, not a huge fan of his and would call him downright trash, but just all the talent, all the players that you're bringing into that room to compete. Sometimes just having more guys in that room brings out the best in other players. And that's ultimately what you want to see. And Nico Reed, another defensive back, or another cornerback, I should say, that impressed in the preseason game. A lot of guys balled out in that preseason game. Miles Purchase, who stole that ball. I mean, there's just so many guys that contributed, and I'm not even getting into the safeties yet. RJ Mickens had a really good game. You obviously still have Elijah Mold and Derwin James. I mean, that is a great problem to have when you have so many guys that you really want to see on the field because you feel like their play has earned it. That is the best thing you want to see. And that's what makes a great team, when you have depth at these positions. So when you inevitably do lose guys for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, sometimes the whole year, maybe they're not coming in and giving you that same level of production that, your star players were. And obviously, that's a lot to ask for, but they're giving you a level of consistency that your team can learn to adapt to. And, maybe they aren't at their level at, even one stat or better than them in certain stats, but, you're able to work with them and mold them into, instead of being liabilities, they enhance the team's abilities. And I know I'm kind of stretching that a little bit there, but ultimately that's what you're hoping for with these depth pieces. And RJ Mickens was a 7th round pick. A couple of these, Nico Reed is an undrafted free agent. Miles Purchase, I believe, was an undrafted free agent. So, if you have those guys coming in here and making plays, and, even if they don't make the roster, they are bringing out the best in those other guys who maybe they thought they had a guaranteed roster spot, and now it's not so much. So, all that to say that, competitors welcome. Although, man, not even talking about that interior O-line, they absolutely botched that, and I can get into that a little bit too after this. But as far as with the defensive backs, as far as with these two position groups, I feel like the Chargers have done a significantly good job in upgrading these rooms from last year. Although the defensive back room was pretty good last year, I think it is upgraded, and the wide receiver room is definitely upgraded. Now, before I get into the preseason week 1 preview a little bit, I do want to talk about, obviously, this offensive line just for a sec. I do try to keep it real when the Chargers do good things and when they don't. And Harbaugh, I do have to call him out for this one. Harbaugh did not really, it was kind of BS from the jump as far as the center and left guard battles. I thought Andre James was a solid signing. that could really compete and have a chance to compete at the starting center position. But ultimately, it looked like it was going to be Bozeman from the jump. It looked like it was going to be Zion at left guard from the jump. They tried to fool us with this, Zion's going to be a center thing. I don't think we ever really bought into it because, you had never tried him at center in his entire career before. So all of a sudden now he was going to be a starting caliber center. Not quite sure what that was about. And I think they kind of realized it. They might have dropped the ball a little bit there. And now with this Slater injury, man, it might rear its ugly head much earlier than we thought. But I still have confidence in this team. But man, the O-line, the interior O-line, and maybe now even potentially one tackle position on it. Definitely some question marks heading into the season. However, we'll talk about this preseason game just for a little bit. Obviously, Chargers taking on the Saints here in SoFi. A couple of ex-head coaches, or a couple of ex-coaches, I should say, that we're taking on in Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley, of course. It is a preseason game. Obviously, doesn't mean nothing, but definitely going to be looking at some O-line play, to say the least. O-line just became, especially a tackle position, swing tackle just became available. So definitely going to be looking out to see who stands out in that regard. And definitely keeping a close eye still on these wide receivers and defensive backs. Also, that interior defensive line, we know Jamari Caldwell, and Tier Tart. Oh, no, Tier Tart's not going to be playing. Deshaun Hand, a couple of the other guys. I want to see Kyle Kennard maybe get some pressures here. So I definitely want to see, definitely looking to see a lot. Going to be looking out for a lot from the Chargers this preseason week 1. I'm sure the guys will be, not as fired up as if this were a regular season game. Obviously, we did take on the Saints last year, but that was before all these coaching changes. I'm sure we're going to see a little bit of Tyler Shuck out there as well. So we'll see what happens. A little bit of a funny story as well. Where I work, Tyler Shuck's older half sister came in and was telling us about, how she had been watching him growing up from like flag football, to middle school, high school. So, obviously, a lot has been thrown around. I threw a lot around Taylor Shuck. And it was never anything against him per se. I just think the situation he came into was truly awful. So, obviously rooting for him, but, I'm definitely just happy that football is back and we have games to watch. We have some games on today, although this video will be posted tomorrow. So we actually have games on both days, today and tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. So it's going to be very exciting to say the least. And we'll see how this team does. And we'll see what happens with Rashawn Slater. We are knocking on wood for our boy, praying that it is not as serious as it sounds. And with that all being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to check out all the other members of the Hit Squad and their socials here below. And as well, be sure to check out us on Twitter, or excuse me, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube. We also have our Gmail. Be sure to leave our comments down below. Let's get a prayer circle down below going for Rashawn Slater. And yeah, hopefully it is not as bad as it seems. With that all being said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.